Hi there, I'm Sipka, and this is the Apatros Review. Now in this episode we take a look at a certain crime film noir film from the 50s, and this film is called Jailbait. Now what do you think? This is actually the strangest crime caper ever made, according to its fans. And this was directed by the infamous, or should I say legendary, or more like the infamously legendary, or legendarily infamous, Edward D. Wood Jr. Yes, Ed Wood himself, Mr. Plan 9 from Outer Space. Now this film was, he actually directed and produced this film, and he wrote it along with Alex Gordon. This film actually came out in the USA on the 12th of May 1954, and in the UK on the 12th of April 1955. And it stars Lyle Talbot, Dolores Fuller, who was basically Edward's girlfriend, Herbert Rawlinson, Steve Reeves, sorry, Clancy Malone, Timothy Farrell, and Theodore Furman. Now, the legendary worst director ever, title holder Edward D. Wood Jr., known commonly as Ed Wood, it was one of those glorious misfits who never had the skill to make a good movie, but while he certainly lacked in skill or talent, he certainly more than made up for in enthusiasm, going at it like the Energizer Bunny. He only managed to make a handful of films before slipping into obscurity for a little over a decade, before the Medford brothers turned him into a cult icon in the 1980s, and the patron saint of the bad movie cult. But once his reputation slowed into place, that cold I have is still there, sorry. Just about every film he made during the 1950s and some of his last films he made in the 60s became a cult classic almost overnight. In fact, there were even films that he never actually released because he couldn't pay for the processing things that were actually dug up and re-released. Now, to be fair, whilst Wood's films weren't exactly good films overall, but they had a fairly effective combination of hilariously clunky dialogue, entertainingly threadbare production values that became the standard to which all bad movies are judged by, as well as classic Doctor Who, and a fair developing of the utter what the fuck weirdness that became Edward's trademark. Now, as for Jailbait, one of Wood's earliest films, and the only time he ventured into the arena of film noir, this extremely strange low-budget crime thriller was produced by Joy N. Hoek, who owned a chain of cinemas in the American countryside. His son, Joy N. Hoek Jr., would become a director himself, making a number of low-budget thrillers that he would use for his father's cinema chain's sole distribution. So basically the son making movies for his father's cinema to show. Films like Night of Bloody Horror and The Brain Machine, both of which I've already covered in this show. As you're probably wondering, is Edward making a film about a sex offender here given the title Jailbait, which by the way is a slang for cavorting with an underage girl? Well, thankfully, no. Instead, this is perhaps the only occasion where the term jailbait actually means something else. The protagonist, small-time hood Don Gregor, has been arrested for having in his possession an unlicensed pistol. He lives in Southern California, which explains a lot here, but the police who arrested him literally refer to the pistol as jailbait. It doesn't make sense for the police to use that term in this context, given its true meaning, but again, would you expect anything different from Southern California? Now, after getting bailed out of the police holding cell by his nurse sister, who is also secretly packing a pistol in her purse, but at least she's smart enough to have a permit, or something to stop the fascistic Southern Californian cops from violating her Second Amendment rights. God bless the Second Amendment. Don meets up with his buddy, small-town gangster Vic Brady. Brady seems to have his eyes set on robbing a local dance hall. Now, by the way, it is of no particular consequence to note that the original version of this film had a rather mildly tamed striptease, performed right before the robbery, but in most theatrical prints and nearly all home media releases, save for a VHS release from running home video, being the only exception, had the scene replaced with a minstrel show with notable blackface performer Cotton Watts performing some decidedly dubious, by today's standards at least, jokes and little dancing. The original version is now known as the director's cut, which is technically true, and by the way, the only way you can get that is on the Rhino home video VHS, which came out in the 90s. In fact, the 90s were pretty much the pinnacle of Ed Wood's popularity, as all his films had the constant VHS releases in the 90s. Pretty much after the Ed Wood biopic that came out, directed by Tim Burton. Now, the pair robbed the hall, but in the confusion, Don accidentally shoots a security guard, who was actually an ex-cop, making Don a cop killer. And as they lie low in Brady's pad, Brady's trigger finger gets tired of Don's nagging constantly and ends up shooting him dead to keep Brady safe. As Brady and his mole Loretta mull over their options, sorry, Brady remembers that Don's father is a local plastic surgeon, and a damn good one at that, one of the best in his field in fact, and contacts him, blackmailing him into changing Brady's face so nobody can positively ID him, claiming to be holding Don for ransom. The good doctor complies, but right before the surgery in Brady's living room, the doctor accidentally discovers his son is dead, like he literally stumbles on his son's body. So he decides to get his revenge and bring Brady to justice his own way. Let's just say that Don will get another chance to live again, in a certain diabolically, cleverly ironic way. Now, a much tighter and more cohesive film than Wood's other works, mainly due to Alex Gordon doing much of the script polishing duties, as well as having the story take place entirely at night, which does give the film a good deal of film noirish atmosphere that helps it a fair bit. Jailbait might not be anywhere near any self-respecting film critic's top 10 best list of film noir features, but it's certainly the strangest. Indeed, some fans call this the strangest crime caper ever made, which fits this movie like a well-worn glove. The twist ending is ingenious, and Vic Brady's ironic comic comeuppance is awesome to see. The cast is made up of wannabes and has-beens. Herbert Rawlinson, who played Don's plastic surgeon father, made his absolute last role here as he was suffering from terminal lung cancer throughout the filming, and actually cashed in his live chips the morning after his last scene was shot. Poor guy. Throughout the film he has difficulty breathing, while the actor who played Don himself was a wannabe actor who used to deliver Ed Wood's groceries. You can say what you will about the quality of Wood's works, but never let it be said that Wood wasn't the type to give his friends and those who dealt with him a fair chance at showbiz. Indeed, his girlfriend, Dolores Fuller, played Don's nurse sister here, and she does a pretty decent job in the role. Surprisingly enough. While the infamous Mesa of Lost Women free jazz score that made that film unbearable returns here. Although instead of being infuriating ear cancer, it actually sounds okay here, strangely enough, and fits the Ed Wood atmosphere. I'd rather listen to that score here than Mesa of Lost Women. Also making an early appearance here is Steve Reeves, who would later star as the original Hercules in the Italian peplum films of the late 1950s, this film being one of the only times in the film you can hear his original undubbed voice. And I believe he also played Superman in some other places. Anyway, now Jailbait earns itself a C+, 5 out of 10, making it a passable entry in the Ed Wood pantheon of hilariously clunky B films. And to be honest, Jailbait isn't held in as high regard as Wood's other films, but it's not a bad film. It's actually, like I say, interesting. The story is kind of stock thing, but it makes sense in its weird way. And if you can get a hold of the director's cut, that would be sweet. But there's only like one release of the director's cut of VHS from the 90s. But the regular version is just as fine. Now, for gore nudity. Some plastic surgery is discussed for the gore, and for the theatrical version, no nudity. But like I said, the director's cut is a different scene where a female burlesque performer does a striptease, getting down to her panties and a very sheer bra that shows off her nipples. Now, by the way, if you want to see that deleted scene in all its black and white glory, well, I'm going to help you out with that. One sec. Now, after you watch this YouTube video, go to the search bar on your YouTube and type the following. Just give me a sec. I should have wrote this. Should have wrote that before, but anyway. Type that into the search bar in YouTube. Now there will be a video that comes up with this exact title in full caps. That short video, it's basically Follies Theater, Los Angeles, 1947. That is the deleted scene from Jailbait, and it shows the striptease in full. Like I said, it's kind of tame, but by 1954 standards, it wasn't allowed theatrically. So they had to replace it with blackface scene. Or for a little bit of the blackface soundtrack bleeding in from an editing booth. So again, after you watch this video, look it up. Foley's Theater, Los Angeles, 1947. Let's see, type that up. The video that has that exact title is the deleted scene from Jailbait. Okay, now this film is currently in the public domain, so there are plenty of copies around it, but just about with the exception of that Rhino tape from the 90s, every release is basically the theatrical print. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, if you have any questions about films or DVDs, in general, just hit me up in the comment section, I'll be happy to answer. Hope you guys are staying safe, take it easy, and that's it for this review. See ya.